Hello everyone, welcome back. Babylon 5. Babylon 5. It's been the source of jokes in Spaced. There's been some bizarre rivalry with Star Trek. Apologies to Sean, but I love both. I'm sure he does too. Babylon 5. It was such an incredible show. It still stands up now, so it does get repeated on TV. Quite rightly, you can watch it anytime. It's not dated. I mean, if you think the special effects are dated, then clearly you shouldn't be watching science fiction anyway. But you can see that it's early CGI and stuff, but the scripts are phenomenal. There are some amazing monologues, as well as dialogues between two characters in the show that just blow your mind when you're watching it. You're just thinking, this is great television. And, you know, some of it's kind of quite theatrical. Some of it's the sort of things you'd see in a absolutely classic play. And the fact that most of it was written by one man, and it was his entire concept. So this is something that he went to the producers and said, I want to create a novel for TV in 5 parts, 5 seasons. And I've got it all planned out. I know how it starts. I know how it finishes. I just want to go with it. You know, let me run with this. And he did it, and he made tweaks along the way because actors changed. You know, some of them went out voluntarily. There was one very dramatic change he made as far as the commander of the station, and that was because he decided that he wanted to change the commander of the station. But it was absolutely amazing because he brought him back later for one of the greatest moments in television. So there are things he changed. And weirdly, at the end of season 4, he was pretty sure it was going to get cancelled. So he filmed the last ever episode that he always wanted it to finish with, called Sleeping in Light, and then found out that it was getting renewed and he could get his 5th season. So that was a weird thing where he kind of prepped something. He prepped the ending, as in filmed the last episode, and then was allowed to finish how he wanted to finish it with the 5th season, which is a bit patchy to be fair, but it's got some incredible moments. So he then produced a different end of season 4 that was like more of a conceptual episode. It's kind of an interesting episode. I think it was called Deconstruction of Falling Stars. It's a really interesting episode, but it was there because he realised he needed a stopgap because he'd prepared for the ending. So he got this 5th season and then put some cycle stuff in there he wanted to put in there and more about the consequences of the 4th season and stuff like that. So it's really good what he put in there, but patchy. But those kind of changes meant that this overall arc that he created right from the beginning needed some tweaks. Because of that sort of thing, but it was a hell of an achievement, and I just think, and it had a huge influence as well. So that was the first time that Star Trek, once Babylon 5 came out, Star Trek started thinking, oh, let's put loads of big story arcs in the show. And DS9 was obviously the biggest example of that because that was on a space station. And the idea of DS9, which a lot of people complained about at the time, was that it was about a continuing issue that might be on the station because it's static, and rather than going different places and having different issues, it was like you can't run away from the issues, which was what was so great about DS9. But it was a huge influence from Babylon 5. And the X-Files decided to get all story arc-y as well, which is quite funny because they had to really shoehorn the story arcs in that because it didn't really work in the same way. But there was lots of shows that were influenced by Babylon 5 because of that. And just in general, it just holds up, and it's just a hell of an achievement on television. So, anyway, enough of my waffle. I thought it'd be nice just for the people who might be tempted, and for the people that do know it, that might want to comment on whether you agree with these choices, these are my top 10 episodes of Babylon 5. Almost all of them written by J. Michael Straczynski. First choice is from season 1. It's episode 10, and it's called Believers. And this is the first time that the risk taking in the show is really clear. So the first few episodes takes a while to get going and to sort of introduce the races and the different diplomats that are part of those races, and look at the character interaction and some of the issues especially between the Centauri and the Narn, who are warring factions. One of them is definitely occupying the other one, or had a history of doing that, and there's that sort of stuff being established on the station. But this one isn't about that. This one, called Believers, is the first time Babylon 5 tackles religion, and it tackles it in the context of a boy from an alien species that is critically ill, needs treatment from the space station's doctor, Dr. Franklin, and the parents say they don't want him to be treated for religious reasons. And the episode is done with respect, but all the way through it, you're just thinking this is a crazy scenario that is also quite real, because there are religions here now that would have the same attitude, and it's just brilliantly done, because you don't know how far the episode's going to go, and by the end of it, it really gives you a sense of what kind of show it is. So, Believers, Series 1, Episode 10, is written by David Gerrold, and David Gerrold is a man who wrote The Man Who Folded Himself, which I've just read, and I'm going to talk about this book soon, and he wrote for Star Trek as well, and that kind of thing. So yeah, that was my first choice. Second choice is also season 1. It's episode 12, and it's called By Any Means Necessary. And this just absolutely blew me away. I loved this so much, and at the time I couldn't believe it. I was raving about it for ages. I was like talking to everyone that watched anything like that, saying, "Did you see that episode? Did you see what they did?" So it starts off with an accident with some mechanics where it's really obvious that the repairs needed for certain sections of the station is like crucial, needs to be done immediately, that people are at risk because of the state of the station, and it's like a health and safety thing that it needs to be sorted out. And basically the workers go on strike, and some people come from Earth onto the station to basically kind of push the union guys around and say, you need to get back to work, this is not on. They talk to Sinclair and some of the other people leading the station, saying you need to sort this out, this is not on, workers should not be on strike. And this scenario, clearly another very real scenario, gets resolved in a really interesting, unexpected, forward-thinking way that, again, you think this is not like your average show. And actually, I think if you think about some of the great moments with the sort of engineers and the people on the ground on the new Ronald Moore version of Battlestar Galactica, it's got that sort of tone to it, but obviously it was a long time ago. So yeah, By Any Means Necessary is a hell of an episode, really powerful and really interesting, and quite a surprise. Episode 20 is my third choice of the season 1, and this one is the first one out of the list that's written by JMS, James Straczynski, who wrote the whole thing, the whole concept. All the rest of them are written by him, and all the rest of my choices, not all the rest of the episodes, but all the rest of my choices and most of the episodes. This is called Babylon Squared, and this is about the mystery of Babylon 4. So Babylon 5 is the 5th version of the space station that's supposed to be a diplomatic central place for any kind of political diplomacy. And it's the 5th attempt to make this station work, and the 4th attempt disappeared, but it reappears again mysteriously, and the way it plays out is really mysterious and interesting, but there's no real conclusion about what's going on by the end of the episode. It does get concluded, but it gets concluded later on, which I'll talk about in another choice. But at this point, it's just a really interesting mystery about what the hell was going on with Babylon 4. So Babylon Squared, absolutely amazing, and it's the first time you get Zathras. I'm pretty sure Zathras appears in that one. He's a great character. He sort of talked to himself and talked a load of nonsense, but some of his nonsense makes sense later. So that was the third choice. The fourth choice is from season 2, and that's episode 18. Series 2, episode 18 is called Confessions and Lamentations. It's another Dr. Franklin episode, another one written by J. Michael Straczynski, and this one it's another one where you don't know how far the series is going to go. It sets up the situation where an entire race has been whittled down to a very few surviving members of this race, and they've got this contagion that they can't get rid of, and they're at the station. They get cordoned off and they get given this part of the station, and it's Dr. Franklin's job to try and fix their illness and to make sure they don't go extinct, basically. And again, it's such a powerful episode, and again it shows how unique Babylon 5 is. It's so brilliant, it's so good. So that's the Marcab, these species that Dr. Franklin has to treat and try and keep alive. So Confessions and Lamentations is episode 18 from series 2. That was number 4. Number 5 is series 2, episode 22, and that's The Fall of Night. So The Fall of Night is the last episode in series 2, and a lot of the things that have been happening in the background start coming to the foreground. So there's lots of plot threads that are developing, and there's a moment. There are a few. One of the things that's been very mysterious up to this point. So this is right at the end of the second season. So this is 40 odd episodes in, and there's a race called the Vorlons that are very mysterious through the whole thing, and they become mysterious in a different way after this episode. So they're still mysterious, but there are some things that get revealed in this episode that makes you think, oh, okay, and it kind of makes you start thinking about how huge the scale of time is in Babylon 5 in the show. And I think that goes back to, I know that J.M. Straczynski did say that one of the things that influenced him was the E. Doc Smith books, and they span like millions of years of time. And I think you can get that sense with the Vorlons. And at the end of this episode, there is such a great moment that you're not expecting, and it changes everything about how you define the alien species and their relationship with all of the other species on the station. They're like an elder species. Fall of Night, episode 22 from series 2, the last episode of series 2, is phenomenal. So the next up, I've done this as one episode because it is kind of one episode with split into two. So it's like nowadays it would be one really long episode, but in those days they kept it as part 1 and part 2. And if it was on Netflix or something, just make it long. But now, in those days, it was a serialized TV thing, and it's a 2-parter called War Without End. Series 3, episodes 16 and 17, War Without End. And just thinking about this episode makes me think, what a show. What an absolutely incredible show. This is the follow-up to Babylon Squared, which I mentioned earlier, where Babylon 4 appeared out of nowhere and then sort of disappeared again. And right at the end of that episode, that Babylon Squared episode, they have to get off the ship, and they still don't really understand what was going on, but they have to get off quickly because they know it's going to disappear again. Or there's a sense it's going to disappear again. War Without End is the conclusion of all that, explains all of that, explains tons of stuff, and it's got the best twist I think I know in any kind of serialized show like that. And it's a time travel. It's a time travel thing. It's time travel done so brilliantly, and because you're invested in the characters, you care about what's going on, and because you care about what happened in season 1, it's fantastic that it comes back again in season 3, and it's just such a brilliant episode. War Without End, just time travel done brilliantly, and it just, at the end of it, when it does that thing, that big twist, you're like, oh my god, this has been mentioned for 3 seasons, And they meant that. They didn't mean what you thought they meant. They meant that. They meant that guy. All that. So with that, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's just unbelievable, that episode. Those 2 episodes. So that story. So going on to the next choice. We're on to season 4 now. So season 4 is when a lot of things come together. So the first 6 episodes of season 4 is basically the end of the Shadow War. So there's this big thing that kind of gets built up over 4 seasons, and the first 6 episodes of that 4th season is all about that being concluded, and then the rest of the season is about the issues between Babylon 5 and Earth, because Earth has become a bit of a fascist state, and Babylon 5 declares independence from Earth, and that all sort of plays out in the last part of the season 4. But episode 6 of season 4 is called Into the Fire, and it's really dramatic. It's because it's been built up so much, and there's so much hanging on what happens in this episode, and some of the races have done horrific things to get to that point. I'm not going to say which one, but there's one particular race that are absolutely guilty for pushing this war forward and being absolute arseholes. So you want to know what happens with them. The Vorlons have become something else that you didn't know about, and that's all embroiled in the Shadow War. And episode 6 just becomes this final part, and it's also got the most notorious quote in the whole series as well, where Captain Sheridan, the guy who's in charge of the whole station, says something that is a little cheesy, but it's classic, which I know Sean just quoted in his Babylon 5 announcement video. He just had a little snippet of Sheridan saying it. So yeah, Into the Fire is just amazing, absolutely amazing, and just the scale of it is just awesome, because there's these elder races involved, and there's the 5 main races that are also been absolutely embroiled in what they were doing, and totally mixed up in their own squabbles, and it all comes to a head. So 3 more episodes. Episode 17 of season 4 is called Face of the Enemy, and Face of the Enemy, again, it keeps surprising you, this show, and this is when I don't want to say too much because it'll spoil it. If you do watch it, what's great about Face of the Enemy is that something happens between 2 characters you don't expect, and someone that you grew to really like as a character does something absolutely horrific and horrible, and you don't really get why until later, and when it's explained why, you're like, okay, I absolutely get it. But this episode, you're like, what is he doing? So yeah, Face of the Enemy, amazing episode. 18, the following episode after that, episode 18 of season 4, is Intersections in Real Time, and this episode is in real time. So one of the things I love about I love it when films are in real time. So just to kind of clarify that, in case you don't know the term, which might be a bit silly thing to say, but if it's a 90-minute film, then the action that takes place in that film is 90 minutes long. So that kind of thing. And this is literally just pretty much, I think it's only 2 characters. There's one main character and one other character for that whole length of that episode. And it's really powerful. It's really good. So Intersections in Real Time is my choice for the 9th favourite. Well, not this is not in order of preference, by the way. This is just in production order, the order that they are in the series. So it's number 9 in the list. That's not my 9th favourite. I couldn't put these in an order. That'd be crazy. So I had to choose the last episode, Sleeping in Light, season 5, episode 22. So like I said, there was a really cool final for season 4 that he wrote specially for it, because he didn't know that he needed to, but he needed to put another episode in there called A Deconstruction of Falling Stars. It's a really good episode. But then he was able to put this episode called Sleeping in Light where he wanted it, which is right at the end. So it's really nice. So what happens is you get 5 years of these things happening on the show, and there's like, was it objects at rest and objects at motion, objects in motion, objects at rest are the last 2 episodes that finish the normal continuity of the story, which is all about the consequences of all of these different things that happen over the 5 years. And then the last episode is a fast forward in 20 years. And they basically, the main characters basically come back together again to pay a toast to the people that have been lost, people that they don't know anymore, that they've died, and that kind of stuff. And to finish up one of the stories from one of the races, I don't want to say who, but they've been estranged to everybody else because of the actions they took in the show, and to turn the station off. So basically they come back together again because Babylon 5 is going to be decommissioned and be turned off. It's quite a nice little Easter eggy thing in the end of the show as well, that when the last moment in the show is a mechanic switching the lights off on the station, so turning everything off on the station, and that mechanic is played by the creator J. Michael Straczynski, so that's quite cool. But it's just a beautiful episode about relationships, about missing loved ones, and thinking about what's happened, and maybe you might have some regrets, or maybe you might have done some things differently. And it's just a really, really nice way to end something that was pretty epic. So Sleeping in Light is my choice for the last episode. It is the last episode. It's my choice for the last of the top 10 episodes of Babylon 5. So if you've seen the show, let me know what you think are the best episodes. I'm sure I'll agree, because I could have chosen another 10 more. There's 22 in each series, and there's 5 series. So there's a whole load of episodes I could have picked. There are more Star Trek episodes, so it's going to be even harder if I'm going to pick top 10 Trek episodes. But what was so special about Babylon 5 is how complete it is, and how it told a story with many different plot lines, many different characters, many different alliances, a lot of history in it, a lot of scale in how many years it spans, and how far out it goes as well, because there's like this, where they talk about going beyond the rim, and that's all about where these elder races would have lived and that kind of stuff. And there's lots of philosophy in it. There's obviously lots of politics in it, because it's all about diplomacy. There's lots of humour in it. The characterization is amazing. There's so many likable characters in it, and they're all quite different. And you get these speeches. There's some great speeches from Commander Sinclair, but the best character for the speeches, and I'm sure everyone would agree with this, and I think J. Michael Straczynski just enjoyed writing for him, and that is Jakar. Jakar was like the reptilian-looking alien. So he's from the Narn race, and he does this incredible performance. And that race has to go through so much in the series, and each time they get occupied, or they get mullered by another species that are kind of destroying their planet, or they get enslaved, or they get their rights taken away from them, Jakar comes out with these amazing speeches that you just think, God, if politicians had speeches like that, wow, they would rally a population. Just brilliant writing, and I definitely recommend it. It's still on now, so yeah, go see it. Babylon 5, brilliant show. Thank you. Bye.